Let me tell you about the day a little boy with a $1 billion last name looked into the eyes of a homeless girl and refused to look away. It started with a traffic light, and in that moment, a 6 year old's heart would either break or lead to something no one expected. I'm still thinking about what this story taught me. Stay with me. Comment faith if you're ready for a story that'll make you believe in invisible miracles. Here's the thing about moments that change your life. They don't announce themselves. No spotlights, no soundtrack, just a random Tuesday afternoon in the back seat of a car. That's where Calder Huxley was when it happened, 6 years old, feet not quite touching the floor. Backpack still on because he'd forgotten to take it off. Staring out the window of his father's black luxury sedan, watching the city blur past in expensive silence. The car slowed at a red light. Calder's gaze wandered. And then he saw her, Leora May, standing on the corner like she'd been waiting for someone to notice. Torn sweater hanging off one shoulder, small hands clutching a plastic bag. Eyes that should have been filled with wonder, filled instead with something that made Calder's chest hurt. Fear. Not the kind kids feel before a test or in the dark. The kind that comes from knowing the world has already decided you don't matter. She was his age, maybe younger, and in that split second, Calder understood something most adults spend a lifetime avoiding. Suffering doesn't care about fairness. This part breaks my heart, because kids aren't supposed to know that yet. They're supposed to believe in happy endings and heroes who always show up. But Leora's eyes told a different story. The light turned green. The sedan pulled forward, smooth and silent, carrying Calder back toward a mansion with more rooms than memories. But he couldn't stop thinking about her. Not during the drive. Not when they passed through the iron gates. Not when he walked into a house so quiet you could hear your own heartbeat. His father, Ronan Huxley, was in his study, phone pressed to his ear. 43 years old, and always mid-sentence with someone more important. They had dinner together that night. Well, they sat at the same table. Ronan asked about school. Calder said it was fine. 12 minutes later, Ronan's phone buzzed, and the conversation ended. The house felt huge, cold, expensive in all the wrong ways. Calder's mom had been gone for 2 years, but her voice still lived in his head. God listens hardest to children, sweetheart, because you still know how to hope without doubt. That night, alone in his room, Calder folded his hands the way she'd shown him. He didn't ask for video games. He didn't ask for friends. He asked about the girl. God, if you saw what I saw today, can you help her? I don't even know her name, but maybe you do. Silence, but not the empty kind. The kind that hums with possibility. Calder climbed into bed feeling like something had shifted. Like maybe, just maybe, he'd been placed at that red light for a reason. Like maybe this was the start of a story much bigger than him. A story about what happens when a child's compassion collides with a billionaire's power, and whether love can survive when it costs you everything. The next afternoon, Calder told his nanny he needed to use the bathroom. He didn't. He slipped out through the side gate, the one the gardeners left unlocked, his heart hammering so hard he thought it might break through his ribs. In his pocket, 2 apples from the kitchen, a packet of biscuits he'd taken from the pantry when no one was looking. His hands were shaking, not from fear of getting caught, from fear that she wouldn't be there, that maybe he'd imagined her, that maybe she'd been a ghost his loneliness had conjured up. But when he rounded the corner, there she was, Leora May, same spot, same torn sweater, same plastic bag clutched between small fingers. She looked up when his shadow fell across the pavement. Her eyes went wide, not with hope, with confusion, like she couldn't figure out why anyone would come back. Calder stood there, frozen, suddenly aware of how ridiculous this was. What was he supposed to say? He'd never talked to a homeless person before. His father's driver always locked the doors when they passed through this part of the city, so he did the only thing that made sense. He held out an apple. Leora stared at it like it might disappear if she blinked. "It's for you," Calder said. His voice came out smaller than he meant it to. She took it, slowly, both hands wrapping around it like it was fragile. "Thank you," she whispered. No tears, no begging, no performance. Just gratitude so pure it hurt to witness. Calder sat down beside her on the curb, his school uniform, pressed, expensive, painfully clean, looked absurd next to her threadbare clothes. They didn't talk much that first time. Just sat, ate, watched the city move around them like they were invisible. And maybe they were. Two kids on a sidewalk, one with everything, one with nothing. Both lonely in ways that money couldn't measure. The visits became routine. Every day after school, Calder found excuses, bathroom breaks, lost homework, forgotten jackets. His nanny was kind but distracted. The house was big enough to disappear in, and so he did. He brought apples, biscuits, once a chocolate bar he'd been saving for a week. Another time, his favorite blue scarf when the wind turned cold. "Won't you need this?" Leora asked, running her fingers over the soft fabric. "I have others," Calder said. He didn't tell her he had 17 scarves, that his closet was bigger than most apartments. They sat on the curb, legs crossed, shoulders almost touching. Talked about cartoons. Leora had seen some through a shop window once. About school. Calder told her about his teacher who smelled like lavender. About angels. Whether they had wings or just looked like regular people doing kind things. "My mom used to say angels are everywhere," Calder said one afternoon. "But we only notice them when we need them most." Leora went quiet for a moment. Then, "Do you think maybe you're someone's angel?" The question landed in Calder's chest like a stone in still water, ripples spreading. He'd never thought of it that way. "Do you pray?" he asked. Leora nodded. "Every night. For food." She shook her head. "For someone to remember I exist." This is the part that wrecked me, because hunger is terrible. Cold is terrible. But being forgotten, that's a different kind of death. Calder reached into his pocket and pulled out the small wooden cross his mother had given him before she got sick. He'd been carrying it every day since she died. "My mom said God never forgets," he said, placing it in Leora's palm, "even when it feels like he does. Especially then." Leora's fingers closed around it, and right there, on a cracked sidewalk in a part of the city people drove past without seeing, two children formed something closer to church than most buildings with steeples. No pews, no hymns, no offering plates, just presence, shared bread, prayers whispered into the space between heartbeats. What shocked me was how naturally faith entered their friendship. No preaching, no pressure, just two kids who believed that somewhere, beyond what they could see, someone was listening. And maybe, just maybe, someone was smiling. It couldn't last. Secrets never do. Calder started getting sloppy. He forgot to brush the dirt off his shoes, left biscuit crumbs in his pocket, came home later and later, inventing weaker and weaker excuses. One evening, Ronan was in the foyer when Calder slipped back through the side entrance. Their eyes met. Ronan's gaze dropped to Calder's shoes, scuffed, dusty, wrong. "Where have you been?" Calder's throat went dry. "Just walking." "Walking where?" "Around." Ronan's jaw tightened. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. "Calder, the truth. I was helping someone." "Who?" "A friend." Ronan's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. Calculation. Assessment. "We'll discuss this after dinner." He turned and walked away, phone already back at his ear. Calder stood in the foyer, heart pounding. He wasn't afraid of punishment. He was afraid of being stopped, because for the first time since his mother died, he'd found something that made him feel like he mattered. Like maybe his life wasn't just about inheriting money and attending boarding schools and learning to shake hands firmly. Like maybe, just maybe, he'd been given everything so he could give it away. That night, lying in bed, Calder stared at the ceiling and realized something adults learn too late. Loving someone in secret carries a cost. But the cost of not loving them? That's heavier. And he wasn't ready to stop. Not yet. Not ever. Before we continue, comment "keep going" if this story is hitting you where it counts, and share it with your fellow story lovers. The next part is where everything falls apart, and where faith gets tested in ways that'll make you question everything. The rain came without warning. One moment the sky was gray and sullen. The next, it opened up like something had torn. Calder ran the 3 blocks from the estate to the corner, backpack bouncing against his shoulders, shoes slapping through puddles that reflected a city too busy to care. He found Leora pressed against a boarded-up storefront, arms wrapped around herself, shivering so violently her teeth chattered. Her sweater was soaked through, hair plastered to her face. The plastic bag she always carried lay forgotten at her feet, filling with rainwater. She looked so small, smaller than 6 years old should ever look. "Leora!" Her head snapped up, eyes wide, lost. Calder skidded to a stop in front of her, rain streaming down his face, breath coming in gasps. "You're freezing," he said. Stupid, obvious words. But what else was there? She didn't answer, just shivered. The city moved around them, cars splashing past, people hurrying under umbrellas, nobody stopping, nobody looking, nobody caring that a child was drowning on dry land. The cruelty of it hit Calder like a fist. How many people had walked past her today? How many had seen and chosen blindness? Something broke open in his chest, not a decision, a desperation. "Come live with us." The words fell out of his mouth before his brain caught up. Leora went still. The rain kept falling. Thunder rumbled, somewhere distant. "What?" she whispered. "My house. It's big. There's room. So much room." The words were tumbling now, frantic, unstoppable. "You could have your own bed. And food. And you wouldn't have to be out here anymore. You wouldn't have to be cold." Leora stared at him. Not with hope. With something worse. Fear wrapped in longing. Like she'd learned the hard way that hope was just another word for disappointment. "Will I be allowed?" she asked. Her voice was so quiet, Calder almost didn't hear it over the rain. But those 4 words carried the weight of a lifetime. Every door shut in her face. Every person who'd looked away. Every night she'd prayed to matter and woken up still invisible. Calder grabbed her hand. "Yes," he said. Even though he had no idea if it was true. Even though his father barely looked at him, let alone made decisions with him. Even though this was probably the most reckless thing a 6-year-old had ever attempted. "Yes, you're allowed. You're allowed because I'm saying so." He pulled her into the rain, and for 3 blocks he believed it. He believed kindness was enough. He believed love could override logic. He believed his father would understand. He was wrong. They made it through the gates, past the security booth, the guard too surprised to stop them. Up the long driveway, rain hammering the manicured lawns. Through the front door, water dripping onto marble floors worth more than most people earned in a year. That's when Ronan appeared at the top of the stairs. He didn't run, didn't shout, just descended slowly, phone in hand, eyes locked on the shivering girl standing in his foyer. "Calder." His voice was ice wrapped in silk. "What is this?" "Dad, this is Leora. She needs help. She's been living on the street and—" "I didn't ask for her story. I asked what this is." Calder's grip on Leora's hand tightened. I'm helping her. By bringing a stranger into our home? She's not a stranger. She's my friend. Ronan's jaw tightened. He looked at Leora, really looked at her, and something flickered across his face. Not cruelty, something worse. Calculation. Calder, go to your room. No. The word hung in the air like a grenade. Ronan's eyes narrowed. Excuse me? I'm not leaving her. For a moment, Calder thought his father might actually listen, might actually see what he was seeing. Instead, Ronan pulled out his phone. Security, front entrance, now. Dad, please. This is not your decision to make. 2 security guards appeared within seconds, large men in dark suits who moved with the efficiency of people used to removing problems. Leora's hand slipped out of Calder's. Wait, no, Dad, you can't. But he could, and he did. One of the guards reached for Leora, gently but firmly. She didn't fight, didn't scream, just looked at Calder with eyes that said, I knew this would happen. I won't lie. This made me sad and angry. Not at the guards, not even at the situation, at the man standing at the top of the stairs watching his son's heart break and doing nothing to stop it, at a world where power trumped compassion, at a God who'd let kindness lead to this. Calder lunged forward. Leora! The guard blocked him, not rough, just immovable. Son, it's better this way. Better for who? Leora was already being guided toward the door. Rain still pounding outside, nowhere to go, nothing to return to. She looked back once, mouthed 2 words. Thank you. Then she was gone. The door closed. Silence crashed down like a wave. Calder stood in the foyer, soaked, shaking, staring at his father. How could you? His voice cracked. How could you do that? Ronan's expression didn't change. You'll understand when you're older. I'll never understand that. Go to your room, Calder. I hate you. Go to your room. Calder ran. Not to his room, to the front gate. But Leora was already gone, swallowed by the rain and the city's indifference, vanished like she'd never existed. Days passed. Calder stopped talking, stopped eating more than a few bites at dinner, stopped looking his father in the eye. Every night he prayed. Not the simple prayers his mother had taught him, desperate ones, angry ones. God, where is she? Is she okay? Is she safe? Please, please let her be safe. Silence answered, the same silence that had filled the house since his mother died, the same silence that swallowed his kindness and spat back nothing. He'd thought he was doing the right thing. He'd thought love was supposed to win. But all he'd done was make things worse, given Leora hope and then ripped it away. Maybe his father was right. Maybe kindness was just naivety, dressed up in good intentions. Maybe the world didn't work the way his mother said it did. Maybe God wasn't listening at all. Calder lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of a question no child should have to carry. Why would God allow kindness to hurt? No answer came, just silence and loss, and a small boy's faith hanging in the air, broken, bleeding, waiting for a miracle that felt like it would never come. 3 weeks passed like years. Calder went through the motions, school, dinner, bed, repeat. But he wasn't really there. He was on a rain-soaked corner, watching a girl disappear into the city's indifference. Then, one afternoon, he overheard something that made him stop mid-step on the staircase. 2 housekeepers, talking in the hallway below. Heard Mr. Huxley set up a scholarship, full ride, housing included. For who? Some girl. They're keeping it quiet. Protected identity or something. Why the secrecy? You know how he is. Does things his own way. Their voices faded as they moved down the corridor. Calder stood frozen, hand gripping the banister. A scholarship. Protected identity. A girl. His heart started hammering. No, it couldn't be. Could it? He started noticing other things. His father taking calls late at night, voice low, mentioning the arrangement and discretion and long-term care. Documents on Ronan's desk, social services letterhead, education proposals, housing contracts. A name Calder almost saw before his father closed the folder, but not quite. Something didn't add up. If his father had been heartless, why the whispers? Why the paperwork? Why the midnight calls about protecting someone's future? Hope, that dangerous, fragile thing, began to flicker in Calder's chest. Maybe, just maybe. 2 days later, Ronan knocked on Calder's bedroom door. Not the sharp, impatient knock of a busy man, a softer one, almost hesitant. "Can I come in?" Calder looked up from his book. Hadn't been reading it anyway, just staring at words that wouldn't form meaning. Okay. Ronan entered and sat on the edge of the bed. Not stiff, not distracted. Present. Actually present. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Ronan said, "I owe you an explanation." Calder's throat tightened. "About what?" "About Leora." The name hung in the air like a prayer finally answered. Calder sat up straighter. "You know her name?" "I know everything, Calder. Where she came from, what she's been through, where she is now." "Where?" Calder's voice cracked. "Where is she?" Ronan took a breath. When he spoke again, his voice was softer than Calder had heard it in 2 years. "She's safe, in a private shelter on the east side. Clean, warm, protected. She has her own room, 3 meals a day. And starting next week, she'll be enrolled in St. Catherine's Academy under a scholarship I established." Calder stared at his father like he was speaking a foreign language. "You... what?" "I said no publicly so I could say yes privately." "I don't understand." Ronan leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. He suddenly looked older, tired, human. "When you brought her here, Calder, everything in me wanted to say yes, to let her stay, to fix everything immediately." He paused. "But the world doesn't work that way. Not for someone in her situation." "Why not?" "Because kindness without strategy is just chaos. If I'd let her stay, what happens when the press finds out? When people start asking questions? When her past, whatever trauma she's running from, catches up to her here in this house in the spotlight?" Calder's hands balled into fists. "So you threw her out?" "I protected her," Ronan said quietly. "There's a difference." He pulled a folder from inside his jacket, opened it, showed Calder photographs, a small room with yellow walls, a bed with clean sheets, bookshelves, a window with actual curtains, Leora, smiling. Calder's breath caught. "I couldn't let her stay here," Ronan continued, "but I could make sure she never had to live on that corner again. I could arrange housing, education, safety, a future. But only if I did it quietly. Only if I kept her identity protected from people who would exploit her story for headlines." Tears burned Calder's eyes. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because good deeds don't always need an audience, son." The words landed like stones in still water, ripples spreading. Calder looked at his father, really looked, and saw something he'd missed. Not coldness, strategy, not cruelty, protection, not absence, a different kind of love. This is what shocked me about the whole thing. Even God moves unseen. The miracles we scream for in public are often already happening in private, behind closed doors, in paperwork and phone calls and arrangements made at midnight when no one's watching. We just don't recognize them because they don't look like we thought they would. Ronan closed the folder. His voice dropped even lower. "There's something else you should know." Calder wiped his eyes. "What?" "I was testing you." The words hit like cold water. "Testing me?" I wanted to see if your compassion would last without reward, if you'd keep caring even when it looked like kindness had failed, if you'd still pray for her, even when you thought I'd destroyed everything. Calder's jaw tightened. That's not fair. No, Ronan agreed. It's not. But life isn't fair, Calder. And I needed to know, when you inherit everything I've built, when you have the power to change lives with a signature, will you do it quietly? Will you do it right? Or will you do it for applause? Silence stretched between them. Then Ronan smiled. Barely, but it was there. You passed. I didn't feel like I passed. I felt like I failed. That's how you know it was real. Ronan's hand settled on Calder's shoulder, heavy, warm. Faith isn't tested when everything works out immediately. It's tested in the waiting, in the not knowing, in the silence that makes you wonder if anyone heard you at all. Calder looked down at the photograph of Leora, smiling, safe, alive. Can I see her? One day, when the time is right, when it won't put her at risk. Ronan squeezed his shoulder. But you can write to her, and I'll make sure she gets every letter. Something broke open in Calder's chest. Not pain this time. Relief, hope, healing. His father wasn't perfect, but he wasn't heartless either. And maybe, just maybe, Calder had learned something his mother would have wanted him to know. Power used quietly is still power. Faith, tested in darkness, still counts as faith. And love doesn't always look like a yes. Sometimes it looks like a no that's hiding a better yes behind it. That night, Calder prayed differently. Not desperately, gratefully. Thank you for hearing me, even when I thought you weren't. Thank you for working when I couldn't see it. And thank you for teaching me that miracles don't always announce themselves. The silence that answered didn't feel empty anymore. It felt full. Full of things happening beyond his understanding. Full of a father, both earthly and heavenly, who loved him enough to let him doubt. And full of a question that would follow him the rest of his life. If kindness cost you misunderstanding, if doing the right thing meant looking like you'd failed, would you still choose it? Calder looked at Leora's photograph one more time. Yellow walls, clean sheets, a smile. His answer was already forming. Yes, every single time. Yes, if this story reminded you that God's best miracles often happen in secret. If you needed to hear that your unanswered prayers might already be answered in ways you can't see yet, share this. Someone in your life needs to remember that faith isn't about immediate results. It's about trusting the quiet work happening behind the scenes. Comment, I believe, if this story changed something in you. And don't forget to subscribe so you can keep up with our daily videos.